Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, I make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week. And if you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment down below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. For today's tutorial, we're making a cowl neck sweater. I've always been a fan of cowl neck sweaters, so I thought might as well try my hand at making another one. This time using the basket weave stitch along with 3/4 length sleeves and a slim fit. This one's sure to turn heads. Speaking of, if you're looking for more head-turning crochet designs, you are in the right place. We have hundreds of modern crochet tutorials and patterns for all tastes, with even more dropping weekly, so consider clicking the bell to subscribe and you'll never miss an upload. Also, do me a huge favor and give this video a big thumbs up if you like it, or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to show support so I can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now it's time to get on the show, so without further ado. For this project, any category 4 yarn will work. But I used a total of 470 grams of yarn, and that's 1,050 yards if you're stateside. As for tools, a 5mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, and tape measure, and there is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order. Enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us which you prefer, crossword puzzles or word searches. Word searches were my favorite, so much so that I used to make my own and then solve them by myself. Details for the giveaway down below. We're using 4 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, and double crochet. This tutorial is made for size small, but you can adjust it for your size, and we explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this top started, we're all going to grab our category 4 yarn and make a slip knot. Next, we're all going to grab our 5mm hook and start by making a chain that is in multiples of 6 that starts 1 inch underneath your underarm down to where you'd like the bottom of this top to be, keeping in mind that we will have a bottom band. I'd like for mine to stop at my waist, so I need roughly 7 inches or 18 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain of 30. Now that we have our chain, we're all going to do 1 additional chain, and this is going to be for every size. So I'm going to chain 1. That is a part of our base chain. Now we're going to block off that last chain and do a chain 2. Now this chain 2 does not count as a stitch. That's our turning chain, and now we're going to do our first row, which is a half double crochet row. So yarn over, and into that chain that we blocked off, or the 3rd chain from our hook, we're going to insert with a half double crochet. So insert, yarn over, pull through for 3 loops on our hook, then yarn over, pull through all 3. Let's do that again. Yarn over, into that next chain, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3, and continue with 1 half double crochet into every chain until we all have 1 chain left. We are nearly finished with our row 1. Into that last chain, we're all going to do an increase of 4 half double crochets. So all that's going to be is yarn over, into that last chain, insert with 1 half double, same last chain with a 2nd half double, same last chain with a 3rd, and then same last chain with a 4th half double crochet. So into that last chain, we should all have 4 half double crochets. We should all have 3 additional stitches from chains that we made, and now we're going to get started on our first basket weave row. So let's all chain 2 and flip your work. Now getting started on our first basket weave row, they're going to be worked in sets of 3 stitches. It's going to be 3 front post, 3 back post, and continue that to reach the end of the row. So to get started on our first front post double crochet, we're all going to yarn over once, and then taking a look at that 2nd half double crochet from our previous row, we are not going to be doing a front post double crochet into that first stitch because we want this edge to be nice and clean. So it might be a little bit difficult to see, but this is my first stitch. We're not going to be working into there. So into my 2nd, I'm going to insert with my first front post double crochet. So what we're going to do is bring our hook down and insert our hook underneath the body of that stitch and through the other side. Then from here, we're going to double crochet per usual. So yarn over and pull through for 3 loops on our hook, then yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and that is our first front post double crochet. Like I said, they're going to be worked in sets of 3. So let's do the next one. Preparing for another front post double crochet, yarn over. Finding the next half double crochet from our previous row, we are going to insert your hook underneath and through the other side. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. That is our second front post double crochet, and we have one more left to do. So yarn over. Finding that next half double crochet from our previous row, bring your hook down, underneath the body of that stitch and through the other side, yarn over, pull through. When we have those 3 loops, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and now we should all have 3 front post double crochets. Now our next set of stitches are going to be back post double crochets, so we're all going to yarn over. Finding the next half double crochet from our previous row, we're going to bring our hook underneath our work now, through that next gap, and then over the body of that next half double, and pull through. Then we're going to double crochet per usual, so yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. That's our first back post double crochet. Let's do the next one. So yarn over. Bring your hook underneath your work, over that next stitch, through the other side, yarn over, pull through, then yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. We have 2 back post double crochets now. Let's do one more since they're worked in sets of 3. Yarn over once. Bring your hook underneath your work, over the body of that next half double crochet and through the other side, pull through 2, pull through 2. Now we should all have 2 sets, which our first set is going to be a set of 3 front post double crochets. Then our second set is a set of 3 back post double crochets. From here, we're just going to continue to repeat this, making our way all the way down. So let's just do the next few sets together a little bit faster. We're always going to be alternating our stitches. So since we just finished 3 back post double crochets, we're now going to do 3 front post double crochets. So all together, yarn over. Finding that next available stitch, we're going to bring our hook underneath the body and through the other side, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2. We have 2 more front posts left to do, so yarn over, underneath the body of that next stitch and through the other side, pull through 2, pull through 2. Again, yarn over, underneath the body of that next stitch, pull through 2, pull through 2. Now we have another set of 3 front post doubles. Now let's do our next 3 back post doubles together. So yarn over. Bring your hook underneath your work, over that next available half double, through the other side, and pull through 2, pull through 2. Again, yarn over, underneath your work, over that next stitch, and through the other side. Pull through 2, pull through 2. We have 1 more left to do, so yarn over. Hook goes underneath our work, over the next stitch, through the other side, pull through 2, pull through 2. Now altogether we should have 4 sets. So 3 front post, 3 back post, 3 front post, 3 back post, and we're just going to continue doing this, making our way all the way down, and then I'll meet you back at the end of the row. We are back and we have made our way all the way down with our row number 2. We have just finished up our last set of post stitches, and now we're going to close off the row with 1 half double crochet into the last stitch from our previous row. And we do need to do that half double crochet to make sure that everything is secured down. So just yarn over, and then into that last stitch, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, then yarn over, pull through all 3. And now our row 2 is complete. So now let's get started on our row 3. So let's all chain 2 and flip our work. Now whenever it comes to doing our basket weave, every odd number row is going to extend our previous row stitches. So what I mean by that is our following row could be a little bit different for everyone, but as you guys can see, my first 3 set of stitches look like 3 back post double crochets. So I will be doing 3 back post. But if your 3 stitches look like 3 front post, you will be doing 3 front post. Neither of them are wrong. So let's get started on our first 3 stitches together, which mine are 3 back posts. Like I said, if yours are 3 front, you do 3 front. So yarn over. We're never going to work into the edge stitch because we want that to be secured down. So we're going to find that second stitch from our previous row, which should be our first post stitch. And since mine's a back post, I'm going to bring my hook underneath my work, over that stitch and through the other side, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. there's my first back post double crochet. I have to do 2 more because remember they're worked in sets of 3, so let's do this again. Yarn over, bring my hook back underneath my work, over that next available stitch, pull through, there's my second back post double, and 1 more back post double, pull through 2, pull through 2. Now from here, my next 3 stitches look like 3 front posts, so I will be doing 3 front posts. If yours look like 3 back posts, you'll be doing 3 back posts. So let's just do the next set of stitches together as well. Yarn over and finding that next available stitch. I'm going to bring my hook underneath through the other side. This is my first front post double crochet. The next one is another front post double crochet because remember they're worked in sets of 3, and then another front post double crochet to get a total of 3 stitches. And that's it. From here, we're just going to continue to extend our previous row stitches. So whatever our stitches look like from the previous row, we're just going to do those set of post stitches. And I'll meet you guys back when we have just 1 stitch left, because at the end of every odd number row for this underarm portion, we're all going to close our row off with an increase. We are back and we are nearly finished with the entirety of our row 3. We should have made our way all the way down, extending our previous row stitches. And when we have just 1 stitch left, we're all going to do an increase of 4 half double crochets. So yarn over and into that last stitch with 1 half double, into that same stitch with a second, same stitch with a third, and same stitch with a 4th. And now the end of our row 3 is complete. So now let's get started on our row 4 or any even numbered row. So chain 2 and flip. Now the general idea when it comes to doing our basket weave stitches is, like I said in our previous clip, every odd number row is going to extend our previous row stitches. But now every even number row is going to be the opposite from what our previous row stitches look like. But since we have an increase, we're going to have to start with a different set. So what we're all going to do, no matter what size we're making, is take a look at that last set of stitches that we did from our previous row. So this is my increase, and this is my last set of stitches. This looks like 3 front post double crochets. So I'm actually going to start this row off by putting 3 front post double crochets into the stitches that we have into the increase, so that once we do our 3 front posts, my next set will be 3 back posts. Since this is an even number row, we need to do the opposite from what our previous row stitches look like. Now if yours look like 3 back posts, your first 3 stitches will also be 3 back posts, so that you can do 3 front posts on top of your 3 back posts. So all we're going to do from here is our first 3 post stitches. Like I said, mine are 3 front posts. I'm going to yarn over and find the second stitch from my previous row. We are not going to be inserting into that edge stitch to keep this edge nice and clean. We're going to find that next stitch, which may be a little hard to see, but it is right there. And we're going to do our post stitches. Like I said, mine are 3 front posts. So here's my first. Into that next stitch, my next post stitch, which is my second front post. And then into that next stitch, which is my next post stitch, which is my third front post. Now that we have our first 3 post stitches, we're going to do the opposite from what our previous row stitches look like. So since mine look like 3 front posts, I will now be doing 3 back posts, and that should be the opposite from the 3 set of stitches that we just did. So together we're going to yarn over. I'm going to do my 3 back post double crochets now. So pull through 2, pull through 2. There's my first back post. Here is my second back post, and then here is my third back post double crochet. Now from here, we're going to continue to do the opposite from what our previous row stitches look like, making our way down to the end of the row. So just as an example, my next set of stitches look like 3 back posts, so I will be doing 3 back posts into there. I'll meet you back at the end of the row. All right, we are back. We're now at the end of our row 4. Now we are pretty much always going to close off our row with a half double crochet if we're not closing it off with an increase, because we need it to be secure. So we just finished up our last set of stitches, just half double crochet into that last stitch. Now we should all have 1, 2, 3, 4 rows complete. Now we're going to get started on our row 5, so chain 2 and flip. Now like I said in one of our previous clips, every odd number row is just going to extend our previous row stitches. So since my first 3 stitches look like 3 front posts, I will now be doing 3 front posts. But if yours look like 3 back, you'll be doing 3 back. Just to do the first set of stitches together, yarn over. Into that first post stitch from our previous row, remembering that we're never doing a post stitch into the edge of that half double crochet, I'm going to start with my 3 front post double crochets. So here's my first, into that next stitch, my second, and then into that next stitch with my 3rd front post double crochet. And from here, continue to extend our previous row stitches to reach the end of the row. So we are back. We have made our way all the way down, extending our previous row stitches, and now we're going to finish off this row. And at the end of every odd number row for this underarm portion, we are always going to end it with an increase of 4 half doubles. So how that's going to work, again, we just finished up our last set of stitches. Into that last stitch, we're going to insert with 1, with 2, with 3, and with 4 half double crochets. And now this row is complete. Alrighty, so we are back. Our first 5 rows are now complete. And it's now going to be a repeat of rows 2 through 5 until we get the underarm portion that we need. Now, it may not be the exact same stitches as 2 through 5 since we are working in sets of stitches. So I'm just going to do the following 2 rows with you to remind you guys how each of our odd and each of our even number rows are done. So just to get started, on our next even number row, we're going to chain 2 and flip our work. So getting started on our next even number row, we're all going to take a look at our previous row's last set of stitches. So we're not going to look at this increase, but the last set of 3 stitches, and whatever those 3 stitches looks like, we're going to do the same set worked into the increase. So as you guys can see, mine look like 3 front post double crochets. So into the increase, I will now be doing 3 front post double crochets. If yours look like 3 back posts, you will be doing 3 back posts. So just to do my first set of 3 stitches together, I'm going to yarn over. Remember, never work into the edge stitch because we want this edge to be nice and clean. So finding that second stitch from our previous row, insert your hook underneath with your first post stitch. Mine is a front post double crochet, and finish off this set. So my next stitch is another front post double crochet, and then my next stitch is also another front post double crochet because remember they're worked in sets of 3. Now that my first set of post stitches are finished, we're now going to do my next set of post stitches, and they are going to be the opposite from what our previous row stitches look like. So as an example, mine look like 3 front posts, so I will now be doing 3 back posts, and it should be the opposite from the set of stitches that we just did as well. So just to do the 3 back posts together, insert with my first back post double, with my second back post double, and then also with my 3rd back post double. Now from here, we're just going to continue to do the opposite from what our previous row stitches look like till we reach the end of the row. And remember that this is how we're going to be doing each of our even number rows. We are back and our row 6 is complete. Now I did already finish off the row with just 1 half double crochet into that last stitch, and we're always going to end off every even number row just like that to make sure that everything is secured down. And now to get started on our next odd number row, we're going to chain 2 and flip. Now for every odd number row, all we're going to do is just extend our previous row stitches, and the last stitch is going to end on an increase of 4 half double crochets. So just to do this portion together, take a look at the last set of stitches from your previous row. If it looks like 3 back posts like mine, I will be doing 3 back posts into there. But if yours look like 3 front posts, go ahead and do your 3 front posts. From here, just continue to extend our previous row stitches, making sure that we end off the row with an increase of 4 half double crochets. Alright, so we are back. We have just finished up our odd number row, and we did make sure that we ended off our row with an increase of 4 half double crochets. Now from here, we're going to continue to repeat our 2 previous rows until we get an underarm portion that can reach from mid-underarm, making sure that our tail end is still staying 1 inch underneath our underarm, because if it falls a little too low, then that's going to result in a much wider armhole, making our sleeves a lot bigger. So making sure that this is staying into place, we're going to make sure that our work fits from mid-underarm over to the front of our body, so roughly around where a bra strap or a tank top strap would be. I will meet you guys back right after an odd number row, so along the top, and then we can get started on the shoulder from there. Alright, so I am back. The entirety of my underarm portion is actually finished. I did my total of 7 rows with you guys, and that's the total width that I needed for my underarm row. So I have a total of 7 rows, and my width is roughly 2.5 inches or 6 centimeters. Now from here, we're all going to make a chain that leads all the way up to our shoulders. So making sure that our tail end is still 1 inch underneath our underarm, we're all going to make a chain that is in multiples of 3 that reaches the top of our shoulder. Now I needed roughly 3.5 inches or 9 centimeters, so I made a chain of 15. Block off that last chain and now do a chain 2, but this chain 2 does not actually count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Then we will be putting 1/2 double crochet into every chain. So yarn over. Into that chain that we blocked off, or the 3rd chain from our hook, insert with a 1/2 double crochet. And from here, continue on with 1/2 double crochet into every chain, and I'll meet you back once we're ready to work into the body portion. We are back, and we have just put 1/2 double crochet into every chain, and now we're going to work into the body. And from here, we're going to treat this as if it were any other even number row. We're going to take a look at our previous set's stitches. So not into that increase, but into those stitches right before. We're going to take a look at those. Mine are 3 front post, so into the increase, I'm going to do 3 front post double crochets. So from here, yarn over, making sure we're still not working into that edge stitch. I'm going to do my 3 front post double crochets. My 3 post stitches are now complete, and since this is an even number row, just like all the other ones, we're going to do the opposite from what our previous row stitches look like. So into my next set of stitches, it looks like 3 front posts. I will be doing 3 back posts, and I'm just going to continue that, making my way all the way down, closing off our row with a 1/2 double crochet. We are back, and our first shoulder row is complete. Now, since this is a shoulder portion, we aren't going to have any increases or decreases into it. We're just going to continue on with our basket weave rows. So since we just finished this even number row, I'm just going to get started on the following row with you and let you do the rest of the shoulder portion on your own. So right after we 1/2 double crocheted into the last stitch from our previous row, chain 2 and flip. So like I said, when it comes to doing any odd number row, we're just going to extend our previous row stitches. So since my first set of stitches look like 3 front posts, I will now be doing 3 front post double crochets. Now that I have my first 3 post stitches completed, continue to extend our previous row stitches, making our way all the way down. All we're going to do is just continue on with our post stitches. So as a really quick example, my last set of post stitches right here look like 3 back posts, so I will be doing 3 back posts into there. So my next set of stitches will be 3 front posts and just continue alternating between our sets, making our way all the way down, closing off our row with a 1/2 double crochet. Alrighty, our second shoulder row is now complete. Now, like I said, for the shoulders, we aren't going to have any increases or decreases on either side. So from here, we're just going to continue on with our basket weave rows, remembering that every even number row, which is actually going to be our falling row, is going to do the opposite from what our previous row stitches look like. And then every odd number row is just going to extend our previous row stitches. Now we're just going to continue on with these basket weave rows until we now have a shoulder portion that can reach the side of the base of our neck. And I'll meet you guys back right after we finish up an even number row or along the bottom so that we can get started on the neckline. Alrighty, so we are back. I have just finished up my shoulder portion. I now have a total of 12 rows, and that's roughly 4.5 inches or 11 centimeters, and now we're going to get started on our neckline. So what we're all going to do from here is put this up to ourselves and insert our stitch marker into any stitch that we have from the top that is in multiples of 3 nearest to the base of our neck. Now we want to make sure that it's in multiples of 3, but once when we have that multiple of 3 number, we're going to move it up just by 1 stitch. So as an example, a total of 9 stitches was pretty good for me, but we're going to move it up 1 stitch towards the top. So I inserted my stitch marker into the 8th stitch from the top, and that's roughly 2 inches or 5 centimeters. Now from here, since we are along the bottom, we're going to get started on our falling row, which is an odd number row. So chain 2, flip our work, extend our previous row stitches, making our way all the way up until we reach our stitch marker stitch. Alright, so we made our way all the way down with our neckline row. We've done our last set, and now we're just going to close off our row with a 1/2 double crochet so it can be nice and secure. So all we're going to do is yarn over, and then into the stitch that we have that's right before our stitch marker stitch, insert with a 1/2 double crochet. And that's pretty much it for this portion. For this neckline portion, we aren't going to do any increases or decreases again, so we're just going to continue on with our basket weave rows. So same rules apply. Every even number row does the opposite from what our previous row stitches look like, and every odd number row just extends our previous row stitches. We're going to continue to do our basket weave rows until we have a portion that can reach across our chest over to the other side of the base of our neck, and then I will meet you guys back right after an odd number row or along the top, and then we can work straight into the second shoulder together. Alright, we are back and the neckline portion is complete. I now have a total of 27 rows. My width is now roughly 9.5 inches or 24 centimeters, and now we're going to get started on the second shoulder portion. But right before we move on, we're all going to need to insert a stitch marker into our middle side row that we have into our neckline. So for those of you that have my numbers, I inserted my stitch marker into the 20th stitch that I have, and this is my one middle row. Everyone's just going to have one middle row into our neckline. Now from here, to get started on our second shoulder portion, we are all going to start by making a chain for the same amount of stitches that we skipped when we got started on our neckline. So for those of you that have my numbers, I skipped a total of 8 stitches. So on this side, since we all should be along the top, I made a chain of 8. So all we're going to do from here is chain 2, flip our work, and then put 1 half double crochet into every chain, and then I'll meet you guys back when we don't have any more chains left. Alright, so we are back. We have just finished up putting 1 half double crochet into every chain. Now from here, I'm just going to show you guys how we're going to be working into the body. It's going to be done pretty much the same way as all of our other basket weave rows, but once we're done with 1 half double crochet into every chain, we have 1 regular half double crochet stitch, which was the last stitch into the body. We want to make sure that we're putting 1 half double crochet into the top of that half double crochet as well before we get started on our post stitches, just to make sure that this row ends in multiples of 3. But once when we have a half double crochet into the top of that half double crochet, we can now get started with our post stitches. So since this is an even number row, we're going to be doing the opposite from what our previous row looks like. So since mine look like 3 back posts, I will now be doing 3 front posts and just continue on with our post stitches, making sure that they are the opposite from what our previous row stitches look like, making sure that the row ends on a half double crochet. Then at the end of the row, chain 2, flip our work. Then it's going to be an odd number row, so make your way all the way back up, making sure that we're extending our previous row stitches. We're just going to continue on to do our basket weave rows with no increases and no decreases for the same amount of rows that we have for our first shoulder portion. And once we have that, I will meet you guys back so then we can finish up with our underarm portion. Alrighty, so we are back. My second shoulder portion is complete. I have a total of 32 rows now. My width is now 11 inches or 28 centimeters, and now we're going to finish up with our underarm. So first things first, we're all going to need to insert a stitch marker into the same amount of stitches as chains that we made that led up to our shoulder. So for those of you that have my numbers, I made a chain 15. So on this side, I inserted my stitch marker into the 15th stitch from the top. Since we should all be along the bottom, we're going to get started on our following row, which is going to be an odd number row. So since it's an odd number row, we're going to be extending our previous row stitches until we have 3 stitches left right before our stitch marker, and then I'll meet you back. Alright, so we are back. We made our way all the way up with our first underarm row, and we should all have 1, 2, 3 stitches left right before our stitch marker. And now we're all going to close off this row with a decrease of 3 half doubles. So how that's going to work is yarn over into that next stitch, which is our third to last, pull through. Next stitch, which is our second to last, pull through, and then into that next stitch, which is our last stitch right before our stitch marker, pull through for a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on our hook, then yarn over and pull through all 5. And now our odd number row for our underarm portion is complete. Now to get started on our following row, we're all going to chain 2 and flip. Now this underarm portion is going to match the underarm portion that we started this piece off with. So since we increased into every other row over there, we're going to decrease into every other row over here. So for every even number row, we are not going to be doing any increases or decreases. Since it's an even number row, we're just going to continue to do the opposite from what our previous row stitches look like. So that is per usual. So just to do this first set together, we're all going to yarn over. We still are not going to be working into that edge stitch, which was that decrease for us in this case. And finding that next set of stitches, I'm going to be doing 3 front posts because this looks like 3 back posts for me. And we're just going to continue on with this row, doing the opposite from what our previous row stitches look like, making sure that we close off the row with a half double crochet. Then at the end of the row, just to do another decrease row with you guys, chain 2, flip your work, And since that is an odd number row, we're going to extend our previous row stitches, and I'll meet you back when we have 3 stitches left. We are back. We should all have 1, 2, almost 3 rows for our underarm portion complete. And just to close off that third row together, we're going to close it off with a decrease of 3 half doubles. So we all should have left 1, 2, 3 stitches. All we're going to do is yarn over into that third to last, pull through, second to last, pull through, and then into that last, pull through for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through all 5, and that's it. From here, we're going to continue to repeat our 2 previous rows until we have the same amount of rows as the first underarm portion that we did together. And then once we do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I will meet y'all back. Alright, so we are back. The entirety of our front panel is complete. I now have a total of 39 rows. My width is roughly 14 inches or 36 centimeters, and after my last row, I did do a chain up of 1 and cut. Once we have our front panel completed, we're going to do a second front panel, but it's actually going to be back. So go ahead and get both of the panels completed. They're going to be exactly the same for both, and then I'll meet you back so we can seam everything together. So now that we have both of our panels completed, we're ready to seam up the sides. So placing our 2 panels on top of each other, we're going to be inserting our hook into the bottom corner stitch of both the front and back panel. We are going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, and then do a chain up of 1 to secure. That chain 1 doesn't actually count as a stitch. Then from here, we're going to do a single crochet seam. So all that's going to be is finding that first stitch into the front panel, insert your hook, next stitch into the back panel, insert your hook, and we're going to single crochet around everything. Let's do this again. Into the next stitch into the front panel, insert, next stitch into the back, insert, and single, and that's it. We're going to continue doing this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut. Alright, so we are back. Now that our sides are seamed, we're ready to seam up our shoulder. So how this is going to work is we're going to make sure that our work is still flipped wrong side out, meaning all of the seams that we did for the sides is still faced along the outside. And then we're going to start by inserting our hook into the top corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. Then we're going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, and do a chain up of 1 to secure. Now for this single crochet seam, we are going to be alternating between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row, since we're working into the tops of our rows right here. So finding our first side row, this is mine right here, I'm going to find that top loop and insert my hook in through there. Find that same top loop within the back panel, insert my hook in through there as well. And now we're going to single crochet around everything. Next, finding our next side row. This is mine right here. I'm going to find that top loop within the front panel, find that same top loop within the back panel, and insert my hook with 1 single crochet. And like I said, we are alternating between 1 to 2 single crochets, so another single crochet is going to be worked into the same top loop. So the second one should be a little bit easier since everything should already be gathered, so working into both the front and the back panel, single crochet again, and that's it. We're going to continue alternating between 1 to 2 singles into every side row, working into both the front and back panel till we don't have any more side rows left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then repeat on the other side. Alright, so we are back. Everything is all seamed up and now we're ready to get started on our sleeve. So we're first going to need to do a single crochet row along our armhole. So let's make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up, and then we're going to insert our hook into the stitch that we have that's nearest to our side seam. Then all we're going to do into our side rows is alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row, and then 1 single crochet into every stitch, making our way all the way around. We are going to insert our yarn onto our hook and do a chain up of 1 to secure. Then from here, let's find our first side row. Now this is mine right here. I'm going to find that top loop and insert with just 1 single crochet. This is my next side row. I'm going to find that top loop and insert with 2 singles. So there's 1, and then there's 2. Let's do this once more. This is my next side row. I'm going to find that top loop and insert with just 1 single crochet. And then this is my next side row. I'm going to find that top loop and insert with 2. So there's 1, and then there's 2. And we're going to continue this until we don't have any more side rows left. Then put 1 single crochet into every stitch until we reach our shoulder seam, and then I'll meet you back. We've made our way up to our shoulder seam. Now what we're going to do from here is insert a stitch marker into this last stitch and into the next stitch so that we have 2 middle stitches. So into this last single crochet, I'm going to insert a stitch marker, and then starting the single crochet row on the other side, find that first stitch on the other side of our shoulder seam, insert in through there with a single crochet, and then insert a stitch marker into that stitch as well. Then from here, continue on with our single crochet row, so 1 single crochet into every stitch, alternating between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row. We should have the same amount of stitches on both sides of our stitch markers, and then slip stitch into that chain space. I'll meet you guys back to get started on the length of our sleeve. We are back. Our single crochet row along our armhole is complete. We have slip stitched into that chain space, and now we're going to make a chain the length that we'd like for our sleeve to be. Now I'd like for mine to be roughly 3/4, so I'm going to make a chain that is in multiples of 3 that reaches the top of my elbow. So I need just about 7 inches or 18 centimeters, so I went ahead and made a chain 30. Now once we have our chain, just like how we did the underarm portion when we got started on this whole piece, we're going to chain an additional chain that is still a part of the base chain, then block off that last chain and chain 2. Now that chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain, and now we're going to do a half double crochet row. So yarn over into that chain that we blocked off, or the third chain from our hook, insert with our first half double crochet. Then from here, put 1 half double crochet into every chain, and I'll meet you back when we have 1 stitch left to do our increase together. We've made our way down with our row 1, and it is nearly complete. We should all have 1 chain left, and now we're going to do an increase of 4 half double crochets. So this portion is going to be pretty much the exact same way that we started off this piece's underarm with, but we're just going to be connecting it into the base. But the rows are going to be exactly the same. So we're going to yarn over into that last chain with an increase of 4 half double crochets. So there's my first, there is my second, here's my third, and then 1 more half double crochet into that same chain. And now this row is complete. Now we're going to slip stitch it into the base. So how we're going to connect every odd number row is we're going to start by counting up the next 2 available stitches. So here's 1 and here's 2. Into that second stitch we're going to insert with a slip stitch, and now our row 1 is complete. Then in order to work our way up to the following row, which is an even number row, we're going to slip stitch into that next available stitch into the base and flip our work. Now from here we're going to do our basket weave stitch all the way down. So yarn over. We are still going to be skipping that first stitch from our previous row and then inserting our hook underneath the next one, starting with 1 front post double crochet, and into the following 2 stitches we're going to be putting 1 front post double crochet into each because these are still worked in sets of 3. Now we should all have our set of 3 front post double crochets. Now we already know how to do this portion, so our next set of stitches are going to be 3 back post double crochets, and just continue to alternate between those sets to reach the end of the row, making sure that we close off the row with a half double crochet. And that is the end of our even number row. Now like I said, it's going to be the same exact idea as the increase portion of our underarm. So at the end of our row 2, we're going to chain 2, flip our work, and then we're going to extend our previous row stitches all the way down until we reach the base, making sure that we end the row off with an increase of 4 half double crochets. So exactly the same way that we did the underarm. And then I'll meet you guys back so we can connect it into the base together. We are back. We have finished up our row 2 that ended with a half double crochet, and also finished our row 3, and since that's an odd number row, we just extended our previous row stitches, making sure that that row ended with an increase of 4 half double crochets. Now from here we're just going to connect it into the base together, so that's going to be done exactly the same way as the first row. So all we're going to do is count up the next 2 available stitches to connect every odd number row. So here's 1, here's 2. Into that second stitch, insert with a slip stitch, remembering that that slip stitch does not ever count as a stitch, that's just to connect. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that following stitch into the base, still doesn't count as a stitch, and flip our work. And now since this would be an even number row, we will be doing the opposite from what our previous row stitches look like. But just like how we did the underarm, since it does start with an increase, I'm just going to do this first one with you guys. And we're going to take a look at that last set of stitches from our previous row. So since it looks like 3 front post double crochets, we're going to start this row off with 3 front post double crochets working into the increase. Then, since it's the opposite stitches from what our previous row stitches look like, then we're going to do 3 back post double crochets, and that's basically it. We're just going to continue on with our basket weave rows, making our way all the way up until we are worked into our first stitch marker stitch along the shoulder seam. and then I'll meet you guys back so we can do the decrease side together as well. Alright, so we are back and the increase portion of our sleeve is complete. Now all we're going to do from here is basically the same thing that we did for the second underarm portion, but instead of increases, it's going to be decreases. So this next row may be a little bit different for everyone. Now, for those of you that ended along the base like me, what you guys are going to do is your following row. Now, since we did the increases into every odd number row for the increase side, we're going to do the decreases into every odd number row as well. So for those of you that have ended along the base like me, your following row, which we're going to be slip stitching it into the base the same way that we've been doing, is going to be the same per usual. So every even number row will not have any increases or decreases. So go ahead and do your following row, working your way all the way out. Then when we are outside, or for those of you that have ended along the outside, we're going to do the following row, which is our next odd number row. Then just do that row, making our way all the way down, leaving the last 3 stitches, and then we can do a decrease of 3 half double crochets all together. We are back. We're ready to do the decrease for our first decrease row when it comes to the decrease side of our sleeve. So we should have made our way all the way down, leaving the last 3 stitches right before the base. And like I said, this is going to be done pretty much the exact same way that we did the decrease side of our underarm. So let's just do this decrease together. Now we should all have 1, 2, 3 stitches left. All we're going to do is yarn over and insert your hook into that third to last, pull through, second to last, pull through, and last, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 5, and now we're going to connect it into the base. So we're going to, again, count up 1, count up 2, slip stitch into that next stitch into the base, and then that's it. From here, we're just going to continue to repeat our basket weave rows, now with our odd number row ending with a decrease until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, I'll meet you back so we can seam everything together. Alrighty, so we are back. The decrease side of our sleeve is complete, and now what we're going to do is seam it up with a slip stitch seam. So for this slip stitch seam, we're going to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up, and we're doing a regular slip stitch seam just to give us a little bit more texture along the bottom. So we're all going to start by inserting our hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. So what we're going to do from here is yarn over, pull through everything on our hook, and let's do the first slip stitch seam. Finding that first stitch into the front panel, we're going to insert a hook. Then finding that same stitch into the back panel, insert our hook in through there. Then just yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops. Let's do that again. Into that next stitch into the front panel, next stitch into the back panel, yarn over and pull through everything on our hook, and that's it. We're going to continue doing this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut. We are back. Our sleeve is all seamed up. Now we're ready to get started on our cuff. So we're all going to start by making sure that our work is still flipped right side out, meaning our shoulder and side seams are along the inside, and then we're going to insert our hook into any one of the side rows that we have along the edge of our sleeve. Then we're going to do a single crochet row, alternating between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row. So just to do the first set of stitches together, we're going to pull our yarn through and start with a chain 1 just to secure. Then find our first side row, and this is mine right here. I'm going to find that top loop and insert with 1 single crochet, and then finding our next side row, find that top loop and insert with 2 single crochets, and that's it. We're going to continue doing this, making our way all the way around, and then slip stitch into that chain space. So we are back. We have made our way all the way around with our single crochet row, and now we're going to get started on the length of our cuff. Now I'd like for mine to be just about 2.5 inches or 6 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain 12. Now that we have our chain, we're going to do a half double crochet row, so block off that last chain and do a chain 2. That chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Then yarn over, and into that chain that we blocked off, or the third chain from our hook, insert with 1 half double crochet, and continue with 1 half double crochet into every chain. So we are back. Our half double crochet row is complete, and now we're going to connect it into the base. But first things first, we're going to make sure that our work is still flipped right side out, right side up, because the ribbing that we're about to have for the cuff is not reversible. So when everything is set out, we're going to make sure that we're working clockwise or to the left, and we're going to start by counting up the next 2 available stitches. So here's 1, here's 2. Slip stitch into that second stitch into the base, and now our row 1 is complete, remembering that that slip stitch into the base does not count as a stitch. Then everyone's following row is going to be a back loop slip stitch row, so into that next stitch into the base, insert with another slip stitch, still doesn't count as a stitch, and flip your work. Then from here, we're going to be putting one back loop slip stitch into every stitch. So finding the last stitch from our previous row, not those slip stitches into the base, we're going to insert into that back loop, yarn over, and gently pull through everything on our hook. Again, into that next stitch, insert into that back loop or the loop that's furthest away from you, yarn over, and gently pull through everything, and continue with one back loop slip stitch into every stitch, remembering not to tug too tightly, otherwise the following rows can be a little bit too tight to work into. We're now at the end of our row 2. Our cuff is going to be a back loop half double and back loop slip stitch row repeat. So to get started on our half double crochet row, we're going to chain 2, flip our work, and put one back loop half double into every stitch. So just do the first one, yarn over, into that first stitch's back loop, pull through all 3, and that's it. Continue with one back loop half double crochet into every stitch. We are back and we are at the end of our row 3, and now we're ready to connect it into the base. So once more, we're going to count up the next 2 available stitches into the base. There's 1, there's 2. Go ahead and slip stitch into that second stitch into the base. Then our following row is going to be a back loop slip stitch row again. So slip stitch into that next stitch into the base. None of those slip stitches into the base actually count as a stitch. Flip our work and then put one back loop slip stitch into every stitch, and that's it. We're just going to continue to repeat our 2 previous rows with no increases and no decreases, making our way all the way around. And when we don't have any more stitches left to work into, I'll meet you back so we can seam it all together. Alright, we are back. We have made our way all the way around with our cuff. Now we're going to seam it together. Now this is going to be an outside loop slip stitch seam. So this is going to be very similar to how we did the seam for the sleeve. So we're going to make sure that our work is still flipped right side out, right side up. We're going to find that first stitch into the front panel and insert only in through that front loop. Then find that next stitch into the back panel and insert only into that back loop. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops. We're doing an outside loop slip stitch seam so that it looks like another back loop slip stitch row. Let's do this again. Into that next stitch into the front panel, insert into that front loop only. Next stitch into the back panel, insert into that back loop only. Then yarn over and pull through all 3, and that's it. We're going to continue doing this, making our way all the way down. When we don't have any more stitches left, do a chain up a 1 and cut, and then repeat everything we did here on the other side. We are back. Both of our cuffs are complete, and now we're going to do our bottom band. So this is going to be a single crochet row, and we're going to be alternating between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row, just like how we did for the cuff. So I'm going to let you guys have at it. So now that our single crochet row is complete, we're now going to make a chain the length that we'd like for our bottom band to be. Now you can make this as long or as short as you'd like. I'd like for mine to be roughly 3 inches or 8 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain 15. Now that we have our chain, we're going to block off that last chain and do a chain 1. Now that chain 1 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Then we're going to insert our hook into that chain with a slip stitch. So insert, then yarn over and gently pull through everything on our hook. And that's it. We're going to continue with 1 slip stitch into every chain, remembering not to tug too tightly after every stitch, otherwise the following row can be a little too tight to work into. So we've made our way down with our slip stitch row. Now we're going to connect it into the base. So finding that next available stitch into the base, we're going to slip stitch it into there. And that slip stitch into the base does not count as a stitch. That's just to connect it. Then we're going to work our way up to the following row, so slip stitch into that next stitch into the base. Still doesn't count as a stitch. Flip our work, and now put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. So just to do the first one, we're all going to find that last stitch from our previous row, insert into that back loop only, then yarn over and gently pull through everything, and that's it. We're going to continue with 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, still remembering not to tug too tightly, and we're just going to continue to repeat these 2 rows, connecting it into the base the same way that we just did, making our way all the way around. And when we don't have any more stitches left to work into, I'll meet you back so we can seam it all up together. Alright, so we are back. We have just finished up our bottom band, and now we don't have any more stitches left to work into, so now we're just going to seam it up. So all we're going to do is an outside loop slip stitch seam, the same seam that we did for the cuffs. So I'm just going to talk you guys through it. So start by making sure that our work is slipped right side out, right side up. Repeat our outside loop slip stitch seam, and then when we don't have any more stitches left to work into, do a chain up a 1 and cut. Alright, so we are back. Our bottom band is all seamed up, and now we're going to single crochet for our collar. But our collar is going to be done in 2 sections. It's going to be done within the front and the back, and we're all going to work on the front first. So first things first, we're going to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up. Then we're all going to insert our hook into the stitch that we have that's nearest to our shoulder seam, and then we're going to do our single crochet row. So what we're going to do is put 1 single crochet into every stitch that we have. Now the amount of stitches that we have needs to be in an even number of stitches. So for this single crochet portion, if you have an odd number, you will be adding 1 extra single crochet into that last stitch. If you guys already end on an even number like I do, that's fine. Just put 1 single crochet into every stitch, and then I'll meet you back once we reach our first side row. Now I put 1 single crochet into every stitch. Now working into the side rows for the neckline, we're going to be putting 2 single crochets into every side row. So doing the first one, we're all going to find our first side row, and this is mine right here. I'm going to insert my hook into there with 2 single crochets. So there's 1, and then there's 2. And we're going to continue with 2 single crochets into every side row. Once we reach our middle side row, be sure to put a stitch marker into both of those single crochets that's worked into that side row. And then from here, continue on with our single crochets. Now this side of the single crochets needs to match this side over here. So if you guys had to add an extra stitch on this side, add an extra stitch on this side, and I'll meet you back once we are into the stitch that's right before our shoulder seam. So we are back. Our single crochet portion is complete. Now what we're going to do from here is now make a chain the length that we'd like for the shortest portion of this turtleneck to be. Now I'd like for mine to be roughly 5 inches or 13 centimeters, so I made a chain of 25. And now we're going to do our first half double crochet row. So block off that last chain and chain 2. Now that chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Now what we're going to do from here is 1 half double crochet into every chain. So yarn over into that chain that we blocked off, or the third chain from our hook, with a half double crochet, and continue with 1 half double crochet into every chain. Alright, so we are back. Our first row is complete, and now we're going to connect it into the base. So the way that we're going to connect it into the base is pretty much the same way that we did for the bottom band. So just to do the first one, we're just going to find that next available stitch into the base and insert with a slip stitch. Now that slip stitch doesn't actually count as a stitch, that's just to connect. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that next available stitch into the base. Still doesn't count as a stitch. Flip our work, and then put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, leaving the last stitch so we can increase together. So we are at the end of our row 2. Into that last stitch, we're all going to do an increase of 2 back loop half doubles. So yarn over into that stitch's back loop with 2 half double crochets. There's 1, and then there's a second. And from here, it's just going to be a repeat of our 2 previous rows. So to get started on our following odd number row, chain 2, flip our work, and then put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, connecting it into the base the same way that we just did. And then every even number row is 1 back loop half double crochet, and then with an increase of 2 back loop half doubles at the end of the row. Continue to repeat these 2 rows, and I will meet you guys back when we have 3 stitches left right before our first middle stitch marker stitch. Alright, so I am back. The increase portion of the first half of my turtleneck is complete. Now we should all have 1, 2, 3 stitches before our stitch marker left, and what we're going to do for these stitches plus the 3 stitches on the other side of our next stitch marker stitch is just back loop half double crochet rows with absolutely no increases and no decreases. So I'm just going to talk you guys through it. We should all be along the base. What we're going to do is just a back loop half double crochet row all the way down. At the end of that row, chain 2, flip our work, and then a back loop half double crochet row all the way back down towards the base, and then we're going to slip stitch it into the base the same way that we've been doing. And we're going to do that for a total of 1, 2, 3, 4. That's our stitch marker stitch. 5, 6, 7, 8 rows. I will meet you guys back when we have these 8 solid rows complete, and then we'll do the decrease side of our collar together. Alright, we are back. Everyone's solid 8 middle rows are complete. We don't need to insert our stitch markers into them. I just inserted them into mine just so we know that these are mine. But what we're going to do from here is just the following row, which is going to be the decrease side of our collar. So since it should all be along the base, we're going to slip stitch into that next stitch into the base, per usual, and then work our way all the way down with our back loop half doubles, leaving the last 2 stitches. So we've made our way all the way down, left the last 2 stitches, and now we're going to close off this row with a decrease of 2. So all together, yarn over into that second to last stitch's back loop, pull through, into that last stitch's back loop, pull through for 1, 2, 3, 4 loops on our hook, then yarn over, pull through all 4, and that's it. The next row is going to be a solid back loop half double crochet row, connecting it into the base the same way that we've been doing this entire time. Then just continue to repeat our 2 previous rows until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut. Alright, so we are back. The entirety of the front portion of our neckline is complete. Now we're going to do the back portion, and then we'll be all done. So first things first, we're going to make sure that our work is still flipped right side out, right side up. Then we're going to flip our work over to look at the back. Now the back portion of the neckline is going to be done pretty similarly to the front, but without any of the increases or decreases, so I'm actually just going to talk you guys through it. We're going to start by inserting our hook into the stitch that we have that's nearest to the shoulder seam. We're going to do our single crochet row, the same exact one that we did for the front panel. So as a refresher, that's just 1 single crochet into every stitch, and this does need to end on an even number of stitches. So if yours was odd, just add an extra single crochet into that last stitch, then 2 single crochet into every side row, and then making our way all the way up to this shoulder seam over here. Then we're going to make the same chain that we made when we did the front panel's collar. So for me, that's going to be a chain 25. Then we're just going to do our half double crochet row with absolutely no increases and no decreases at all, making our way all the way around, connecting it into the base the same way that we've been doing. Once we have that and made our way all the way back, do not do a chain up of 1 and cut, because we're going to seam the edges together, and then we'll be all done. Alright, so we are back. We have made our way all the way across with the back half of our collar, and we are all done. Now we're just going to seam the sides, but I've already done one, so I'm just going to talk you guys through how to do the other one. Now this is going to be a single crochet seam, so the same seam that we did for the sides and for the shoulder. Then we're just going to do our single crochet seam per usual, do a chain up of 1 and cut, repeat on the other side, and then we'll be all done. We are back. Everything is all seamed up, and now we are all done. The last thing we're going to have to do is just weave in all of our ends. There you have it. Hope y'all enjoyed the tutorial. Join us on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch you on the next one. Bye!